Golf Central on YouTube is brought to you by the new Chrome Tour golf ball from Callaway.
Coming up on Golf Central, it was a big moment on Monday as Brooks Koepka announced his return to the PGA Tour. What's next for the five-time major champion? Paige Mackenzie weighs in. And former Augusta National Women's Amateur Champion Lottie Woad will join us as the LPGA Tour kicks off a special anniversary event at the iconic Pebble Beach. What is next for the LPGA Tour in 2026? This is Golf Central.
Golf Central, brought to you by Callaway Golf.
So with that, a very good afternoon. Welcome into Central on this Tuesday. Anna Jackson with you as we are now just a couple of days away from the opening round of the 2026 PGA Tour season. Plus, it is a celebratory week on the LPGA Tour. We've got some great guests coming up in the next hour. So to dive into all of this week's news with me is my friend and colleague, Paige Mackenzie. Paige, always so good to see you. Obviously, big news yesterday, but we've got some golf coming up and some big names in the field over in Hawaii. Where is your mind at, my friend?
Well, my mind is multiple places. Number one, we're celebrating the LPGA Tour and the 75 years that it's been in existence, as well as with the news yesterday in Brooks Koepka, you still understand the turbulence that's going on the PGA Tour side in the year. But more importantly, Anna, we also got a chance to see live golf.
Yes.
I love that on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
That we do. We've got some Corn Ferry Tour highlights coming up in just a second. But first, let's kick off with the big breaking news that we had just yesterday. As on Monday, it was the five-time major champion Brooks Koepka who announced his return to the PGA Tour. The tour announced the returning member program yesterday afternoon, creating an expedited path back for LIV's most accomplished players, including Koepka, who joined LIV in June of 2022, but left the Saudi-backed circuit with a year remaining on his contract and reapplied for PGA Tour membership just last week. So according to the new policy, Koepka will be eligible to play this season on tour with an assortment of stipulations. The new policy is only open to players who have won a major or the Players' Championship since 2022 and who have been away from the tour for at least 2 years. So Koepka is set to make his return at the Farmers Insurance Open in just a couple of weeks. So as you can imagine, this news has generated a lot of response on social media, including from some golf legends, including Fred Couples, who tweeted out, "He is back. Welcome home, Brooks Koepka and the PGA Tour." Max Homer as well, also chiming in, "Welcome back, Brooks." A lot of other players getting stuck in, as well as this guy, who might have a big decision on his hands to make before February 2nd. Reigning US Open champion, YouTube sensation Bryson DeChambeau. Very clever. Exit? What would you do? He said. One word, Bryson: leverage. So will Bryson be following his once arch rival Brooks Koepka, the big game hunter, back to the PGA Tour? He's a five-time major champion. That most recent win coming at Oak Hill in 2023, which he won, of course, whilst he was still playing on LIV. So what does the future hold for Brooks? What kind of Brooks Koepka will we see when he makes his return? Paige, let's dive into it. First of all, just a big picture takeaway. You've had kind of 24 hours to simmer on this news. What is your big takeaway from it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I don't know if it really mattered which name it was that returned to the PGA Tour. I think the takeaway for me is the symbolism and maybe the message that was sent with a LIV golfer returning and asking to rejoin the PGA Tour. And then the PGA Tour, of course, effectively allowing any of those four that meet the criteria to come along as well. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. It's great to have Brooks Koepka back on the PGA Tour because he's entertaining. He's a major champion. He's still playing good golf, top 15 in a major championship last season. But I also think it wouldn't necessarily have mattered whether it was him or anybody else that was able to kind of work the system to where we are today with the PGA Tour now opening the pathway.
There's been some strong opinions really since the word go when players started to defect to LIV as to were they ever going to be able to come back? How were they going to be able to come back? And what would that look like? From what we've heard from the PGA Tour members page, do you get the feeling that there's a positive response to this program?
I think the emotions have tempered a bit. I think over the last couple of years, they were there was a group of players and people around this issue that really were hoping and expecting, if this were to happen, that there would be really punitive, punishing damages, that they would expect that the players be required to pay or sit out, and that did not come to pass. While there is a financial element to this, most of the financial element didn't exist when Brooks Koepka left. When you're talking about some of the equity part that he's not allowed to partake in, as it relates to earning money on the PGA Tour, that's still there. And as it relates to any fines, that didn't happen in a way that I think certain players maybe wanted to happen. But I think overarching, again, when you take a step back, what I'm hearing from the players that have spoken out, and it's probably a biased group of players that have spoken out, because those that are more on the side of wanting Brooks to return are obviously the ones that are more likely to speak at this moment. They're okay with there not being a huge punitive, punishing financial requirement. Yes, there was a $5 million charity aspect, but it's more of a restricted membership as it relates to earnings than it is a punitive. And I think that actually speaks, Anna, to what we're hearing from players and knowing that they're equity partners in the PGA Tour. They understand the business aspect of it. And I think that's also a big takeaway as what's been going on and what's the chatter over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and ultimately, Brian Rolat's plan is just to get the biggest players in the world to be competing on the same stage and to strengthen the future of the PGA Tour. And no doubt Brooks Koepka will play a part in that. So as we know, it's just 4 players who are eligible to come through this program who went over to LIV. Bryson DeChambeau has touched on the subject on social media. We haven't heard anything from John Rahm, but this came in from Cam Smith today, one of those eligible players. But he told golf.com today that I've made a decision to come to LIV and I stand by it. Okay, well, moving on. The 2026 PGA Tour season does begin this week with the Sony Open in Hawaii. This annual event at LIV Country Club on the island of Oahu has been home to the Sony Open since it began in 1965. You've got coverage beginning right here on Golf Channel on Thursday. And it's a good field, I have to say. 20 of the top 50 players in the official World Golf Ranking, highlighted by world number 5, Russell Henley. You've got world number 6, JJ Spawn, Robert McIntyre as well, Ben Griffin, Keegan Bradley, Hideki Matsuyama, and Colin Morikawa. So for more on what is going on down in Hawaii, let's say a very good afternoon to our George Savaricas from the island of Oahu. What a tough day in the office it is for you, George.
The breeze is picking up a little bit, so it's getting tougher this afternoon, but a nice start for those on the PGA Tour to kick off their year for the first time here at the Sony Open at LIV Country Club. You mentioned some of those big names. A year ago at this time, Sahit Theegala would have been one of those at the forefront. It was just outside the top 10 in the World Golf Rankings, had played in a President's Cup, was on this trajectory where he was on the short list of names to think this guy could be a breakout star in 2025. Had to deal with an oblique injury, didn't play well, has now fallen outside the top 100. So it's fascinating to see him come into 2026, the range of outcomes for Sahit Theegala. Will he look like the guy in 2024 who was a fringe top 10 player? Or is he going to look like the injury-plagued guy a year ago who wasn't in his top form? I asked Sahit, when you look at the last 2 years, how do you zoom out and digest those as you spin it ahead to 26?
Kind of feels like a reset. I feel like a rookie again. Just kind of a lost season last year and just healthy. So happy about it. It's just awesome to see everyone. I feel like everyone's fired up at the start of the season and want to get off to a good start.